Hello, this is CJ Hoyle. Today is Thursday, February 20th, 2020, and I'm standing here in Boulton Drive Parkette here in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Today I'm riding my Green Machine bicycle, which has an action camera mounted on the front of it, and in this video I'm going to be giving a tour of Poplar Plains Rd and Russell Hill Road. Alright, so from this parkette I'm going to begin making my way north and starting to climb up the big hill that you have to experience when you're going north in Toronto, once you get sort of north of the CP rail tracks. Over on the right, that's the City of Toronto's high-level pumping station, which is one of many pumping stations that the City of Toronto has, which is used for pumping water up this hill. That particular pumping station is actually designated as a historic site. It's been around since the very early 1900s, like 1907, I think. And as you can see, Poplar Plains Road here has a bike lane on it. And it is, in fact, the oldest bike lane in the City of Toronto, which is one of the reasons why I decided to include this as a video today. This bike lane was first installed in 1979, so it celebrated its 40th birthday last year. And you can see that Poplar Plains Road is a one-way street with this bike lane on it. And supposedly before this bike lane was installed, this must have been already a pretty common cycling route. Forgive my huffing and puffing, I am climbing up a fair bit of a incline here. So yes, it was presumably a pretty common cycling route, but it was just a regular street with no bike infrastructure, and apparently vehicles would race their cars very quickly up and down this hill, and so the city's cycling committee at the time was able to get this lane built, and it was supposed to be a combination of other projects that were all getting built in around the same time. But the feedback received by the public, at least in the main newspapers of this bike lane, wasn't particularly favorable. So this bike lane stayed not only as the first bike lane in the city, but it stayed as the only bike lane in the city for quite a long time, about 10 years from what I understand. Now that's kind of interesting because it's only a one-way bike lane, so you could use this to get up the hill, but once you're at the top of the hill, you gotta find your own way back down the hill. So we're now mostly at the top of the hill here now. So the parkette where I started this video is just a little bit north of the intersection of Dupont and Davenport. And on the other side of that intersection is St. George, which is a street that has bike lanes on it. So it's common for cyclists to ride, north along those bike lanes and meet up here with these bike lanes. So this video is being filmed on a Thursday morning before I start working. I normally try and film these videos on weekends, but this past weekend when I went out to go and make a video, I actually forgot the voice recording device that I normally use for this, so I had to put this video on hold. And now I'm filming it on a weekday instead. So given that I'm filming in the morning, it's actually kind of chilly out here. It's about -7 degrees Celsius. It is supposed to warm up later today. So I'm just approaching this intersection here, which is quite an interesting intersection. I guess I have a green light I can go through. Oh, actually no, missed it. Well, that's kind of a good thing because it gives me more of a time to talk about this infrastructure here. So this is St Clair Avenue West, and let me just press the button here so we get the traffic light to change. So this is a fairly busy arterial that goes east-west, and it's got 2 lanes of vehicle traffic in both directions, and then in the middle there's a right-of-way for the streetcar. So there's that sort of raised concrete area there in the middle, and that's where the streetcars go. And actually I can see a streetcar coming that we'll probably get to see not too long from now, as long as the traffic light doesn't change before it. So this is a street that streetcars have run on for a very long time, but back in the early 2000s, I believe about 2007, this streetcar right-of-way was installed, which gave streetcars their own dedicated area. Here you can see the streetcar coming, which they don't have to share with vehicles at all, which made the streetcar more reliable, or that's the idea at least. Spadina Road, or Spadina Avenue in Toronto is kind of similar. There's other examples around the city. But anyways, this bike lane, as I mentioned, was installed back in the 1970s, 1979, and the idea was that this bike lane would take you as far as here, and then cyclists would cross here at this traffic light, and from there they would then. Actually, I don't think there wasn't even a traffic light here, but they would cross here, just wait for a gap in the traffic, and then they would continue their way up through neighborhood streets on the other side of St. Clair. But when they put this streetcar right-of-way in there, this traffic light did not exist, and neither did this little raised section where there's ramps for you to climb over this. So for quite a long time, the bike lane just sort of ended there, and you had to either sort of carry your bike across the streetcar tracks, which is apparently illegal, or, go and take another road instead. But anyways, that traffic light there was installed back in last year, back in 2019, and finally you can now get from Poplar Plains across St. Clair up to this road here, which is called Dunvegan Rd. So we're now in a neighborhood that's known as Forest Hill, which is known for having some very high-priced real estate. Oh, look at this guy in the unicycle coming towards me. You don't see that every day. So yeah, some very large, very expensive houses. So we're just going to work our way north a little bit here, and then we're going to turn around and actually come back to the point where we started down there at Boulton Street Parkette. But because Poplar Plains is a one-way street up the hill, we'll have to take another road to get back down, and that road is called Russell Hill Road. So yeah, once you're in Forest Hill, there aren't any bike lanes, but at least not on these neighborhood streets. But the traffic's fairly light anyway, so it's not too bad for riding on. Pretty cycling friendly. I'm still climbing a little bit of a hill here, but not nearly as steep as what I was climbing back on Russell Hill. I guess it's not, the Russell Hill is not that, or sorry, the Poplar Plains Hill is really not actually that steep, but in the article that I read about it, it mentioned that, it was kind of a bad choice for an initial bike lane because I guess back in the 1970s, a lot of people had bikes that didn't have gears that they could change, so a lot of people would just walk up that hill anyway, so giving them a dedicated place to ride wasn't the most applicable to everybody. So coming up on the right is a private school for girls known as the Bishop Strachan School. And that's a very old private school. That's that, that large building you can see on the right. and they first opened in 1967, so I guess this year they'll be celebrating their 153rd birthday. One of the reasons why I'm able to remember what year that school opened was because when they celebrated their 150th, it was the same year that Canada celebrated its 150th in 1867. So here I am at Russell Hill Road, which is the road which will take me back down the hill. So I'm going to make a left turn onto this, and then we'll make our way back down that nice big hill that we climbed up. And of course it'll be a nice downhill for us to coast down. And just like before, this part of Russell Hill that's sort of north of St Clair, that's in Forest Hill, it's got no bike lanes on it. But it does have a bike lane once we get across St Clair. So Poplar Plains and Russell Hill Road are two very common cycling routes for people that are traveling between downtown Toronto and midtown Toronto. I lived in the Yonge and Eglinton area for about 3 years, and during that period I used these two routes, very regularly if I wanted to go downtown, to go shopping somewhere or meet somebody or something, or go and catch the GO train from Union Station. This is usually one of the ways I would take to get downtown. It was not the most direct route. I think just going straight down Yonge would have been the most direct, but this would have added a few minutes to my ride, but made it a pretty pleasant ride to do. And obviously a lot safer, or at least seems a lot safer. So here we are back at St Clair Avenue West, which we'll cross and wait for this traffic light. So you can see right here we're on a one-way again. So portions of Russell Hill Road are two-way, but this portion here is one-way, and beyond the traffic light it's one-way with a bike lane. This design of road isn't very common anymore. Typically when they're adding bike lanes to neighborhood streets that are one-way, at least in the last 6 or 7 years, the city is typically making those into contraflow bike lanes, which means that the bikes are able to go in the opposite direction as the cars. So it makes a one-way street into a two-way street for bikes. So it makes it more accessible. But again, these ones were built, Poplar Plains built in the 1979, Russell Hill Road built about 10 years later, and obviously different standards and practices were in place back then. I'm sure back in 1979 there weren't very many bike lanes anywhere in Ontario. Now it's kind of snowy right now, and they haven't really done the best of jobs of plowing this bike lane, or at least snow has sort of drifted its way back into the bike lane, and some ice has formed. So this is a road that people often in the summer will just barrel down as fast as they possibly can on their bikes. But I'm definitely not going to be doing that today. Even though I do have a bike with studded tires, I'm going to be taking my time coming down this hill. Straight ahead through the trees, you may be able to see the CN Tower. Of course, that's something you can see lots of places in Toronto when you're coming south, but it's always a nice sight of the skyline. Alright, it's got a little stop sign here, and then we'll continue our way down. And yeah, this bike lane is really not in very good shape for riding, but I also, I know that I kind of said that it took them a long time to actually build this bike lane, but I don't even know that it's really that necessary, because I find that when I'm coming down here, at least in the summer, I'm usually going, as fast as the vehicles are coming, because, the speed limit here is pretty low. So, yes, I will sort of ride around the line like this, but I'm not usually getting passed very, very often when I'm coming down here anyways. But I guess that, that doesn't go for everybody. I'm sure there are plenty of cyclists who don't like to go quite so fast coming down hills, and for them, they, appreciate having that separate lane for for them to ride slower in. Alright, so this is where where Russell Hill, would sort of dead end straight ahead at Poplar Plains, so sort of back where we started, but we're actually going to turn to the right here onto Boulton Drive. And this part of Boulton Drive was recently changed. The road used to be a lot wider here, but they've narrowed it and added a sidewalk and made this hill a little bit nicer for coming down. Of course, I have to ride through all this snow again, but yeah, this is not quite ideal. You gotta be really careful on ice, especially when you're coming down a hill and curving, because you can slip pretty easily. So yeah, we're just about down at the bottom of the hill. So I actually have filmed both of these roads before in various different videos over the years, but I've never shown them as a tour like this. So if you do want to see what these roads looked like a few years ago, you can check out some of the links in the description below. The most notable change would, of course, be that traffic light that was installed. We're just crossing Cottingham Road here, and that parkette that you can see over on the left, that's the Boulton Drive Parkette that we started the video at. Well, anyway, I hope you enjoyed joining me for this tour of Poplar Plains Road and Russell Hill Road here in Toronto. If you watched all the way to the end of the video, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below, and thanks for watching.